Reach Church, what's up? I know what some of you guys are thinking. Where's that guy that I saw on the computer? Well, Pastor Chad and Sarah, they took some time and they, if you're a Chiefs fan, you know that this doesn't happen very often. They're actually hosting the playoffs in Kansas City. So Pastor Chad and Sarah took some time to go celebrate and cheer on their team, and hopefully they can take down the Patriots. So for those of you, if this is your first time here, I want to encourage you, come back next week because I can guarantee it's going to be better than this week. We can go ahead and take that one to the bank. So my name's Michael Wilson, and I serve as the missions pastor here at Reach Church, and it's an honor and a privilege to get to serve alongside of all of you guys. I love you, and I'm so thankful for you. And Pastor Chad, I know you're going to be watching this. I just want to say thank you for all of the opportunities you give me to grow as a leader and as a follower of Christ. And I'm just so thankful for Pastor Chad. He is the same person off the stage as he is on the stage. He is the most generous person. He has the biggest heart, and he loves you guys so much. And he takes his job here as the pastor very serious. And he loves each and every one of you. So a lot of you guys don't know this, but ministry isn't just shaking hands and kissing babies. I mean, I know that's what a lot of people think, that that's all that we do, but it's not. See, the other day, Ketcher and I were up on the roof helping fix something. And if you guys noticed that beautiful parking lot, can we go ahead and get a round of applause for that one? Yep, that was me and Ketcher and a little bit of YouTube and some paint. We borrowed a sprayer and we went and sprayed it, and we did our best. And you know, we were standing out in this back part of the parking lot, and as we were looking down that main line, we looked and it was straight, and then all of a sudden, boom, it kicked out, and it was a big hook in that line. And I was talking to Ketcher and I was like, "What are we gonna do, man? This is way past our skill level." We were thinking, we had two options here. We got to choose. Are we going to follow the line that's already there and keep it crooked, or are we going to make the line straight? Okay? The pro of following the line is it was going to be the easiest way because we could just follow the line. Now, the opposite of that, there was a con to going straight on it, because if we went straight, you'd still be able to see the old line and it would look awkward, right? But you know, eventually that weather is going to wear down that old line and it's going to disappear, and all that's going to be left is a straight line. Whenever we get a fresh start in any spot in our life, it's going to feel weird and it's going to look weird for a bit. People are going to be asking you, "Well, why are you doing that?" It's going to be weird, but eventually that's going to become a habit that's going to change your life, and your life is no longer going to be crooked, it's going to be straight. But you have to get through that awkward stage if you want to see your life changed. It's consistency. Let the weather wear down your old habits. Don't follow them anymore. Follow a new way and get a fresh start. See, I've been told that there's three things that you don't talk about in a group setting. And I'm sure that you guys know what these are. You never talk about religion. You never talk about politics, and you never talk about money. Well, I'm just going to let you know we're going to be talking about all of them today. So if you feel weird, you can probably just go ahead and head out. So right now in America, we're facing a financial crisis. And we just want to ignore it. We just want to act like it's not there. I want to read you guys some statistics. And as I read these, just be thinking about everybody. We have a bunch of people in here. Just think of the percentages of these things will really just like sink deep into your heart if you let them. Okay, 80% of working age Americans have debt. 78% of working age Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So what does that mean? That means that 78% of people can't afford a $1,000 emergency if they weren't able to use their credit cards or another way of debt. Okay, well 44% of that 78% couldn't afford a $400 emergency. Let this sink in. 70% of working age Americans are going to a job every Monday that they hate because they can't give it up. They have to have that income. So they're not living out their calling because they're strapped. These are the stats. 50% of marriages end in divorce. If that doesn't make you mad, I don't know what does. And the number one reason for divorce in America is money fights. You know, I don't know about you, but normal isn't working. We have to do something different, and we're going to look weird when we do it. But I don't want to be normal. I don't want my marriage to have a 50% failure rate. I don't want to be strapped and have to worry about my heater going out or my AC on my car going out. I don't want to live that way. I don't want to be so strapped that I'm stuck in a job that I hate because I can't get out. Because I've overspent my resources for so long that I just can't get out. I don't know about you, but I don't want to live that way because normal isn't working, but we're acting like it is. And if you remember one thing from this message, it's this advice. Look at what everyone else is doing and run the opposite way as fast as you can. That's it right there. That's my whole sermon. Run the opposite way. You're going to look different. People are going to be asking why you're doing it, but you're going to prosper. Because people aren't prospering according to these statistics. People are working in jobs they hate. They're spending more money than they have, and they're strapped so bad that they can't help anybody if they wanted to. Don't be normal because normal's broke. Romans 12:2 says, "Do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." We can't do what the world's doing because it's not working in every aspect of life. But in particular, I'm talking about our finances. We can't do what the world's doing. When we're financially weird, we go from looking rich to being rich. God has given us wisdom on how to handle our finances so that we can prosper, so that we can help people on every occasion, so we're not so strapped that we can't help a neighbor that's in need, a single mom that's struggling. How awesome would it be if we weren't paying $500 for a car payment, but we were giving that to missions, or we were doing that? Wouldn't you rather your money go to something worthwhile than something that's lasting a few years and is going to be outdated next year because they're coming with a new model? And you know, I'm going to teach you guys, and this is something that I've really been struggling with, and after this all my nerves are going to be gone because this is the one thing I'm scared to say, but I feel like I need to say it. So I'm going to teach you something, and this is a word that it's from the beginning of time it's been used. This is a word that is, before Jesus was born, they were using this word. And in recent history, it's become like a cuss word. I mean, you don't say this word because people will get offended or whatever. And I can't believe I'm saying this. I hope that I have a job whenever I come in on Monday. I'm saying this from the stage. I guess we'll find out after we're done. But this word is the word no. It's a complete sentence. It's okay to say no. It's okay to not go out and eat every time somebody asks you. It's okay to say no. It doesn't mean that you don't love that person. It doesn't mean you don't want to spend time with that person. It just means that I'm tired of being strapped for time and having to worry, am I going to find time to do stuff? Or spending all of my resources on things that, no, it's okay to say no. Some people need to learn to say no. And I say this because we only have 24 hours in a day. You only have such a limited time here. So you have to guard your yeses. You have to choose what you're going to say yes to. And Micah up here was talking about making time to be in the presence of God, but we're so strapped for time that we can't make time for Him with everything we've got going on. Learn to say no, and it's going to free you. It's going to feel weird because you feel, like me, I'm a people pleaser. I love to make people happy. And it was a struggle for me at first to say no, but after I've done it, it's freeing. It's like the chains are gone. I've been set free. I can say no now. Ask Mike and Holly. I can say no all the time. I kind of do it for fun sometimes. But see, we have to know this, that we're going to say no to some things so that we can say yes to the best things. Because when we say yes, you are in turn saying no to something else. And something's going to come up that's more important, but you've already set your schedule, so you haven't made time for the Spirit to bring people into your life. You haven't made time to mentor that person that's struggling. You haven't made time for these important things, investing into people, being in a small group, leading a small group, hosting a small group. I don't have time for that because I've already said yes to everything else. And these things don't matter. And one of the keys to being able to say no is, so there's a thing called wisdom. I don't claim to have much of it, but I've broken it down, and there's first-hand wisdom and then there's second-hand wisdom. Okay? So first-hand wisdom is those people, they walk with a little bit of a limp because they've seen some life's happened to them. They've seen some things. They've messed up, and they've learned from it. I mean, these people are typically old, like 40. I mean, let me tell you, they've typically seen some life. All jokes aside, but firsthand wisdom is wisdom that has been lived firsthand. You've learned something, and you've experienced something, and you've grown. Okay? And then there's secondhand wisdom. This is extremely hard to be a master of, and this is something that I have spent intentional time trying to learn how to do, and it's extremely hard. See, secondhand wisdom is being able to listen to somebody who's messed up and learn from their mistakes. Yeah. The ability to learn from somebody and not have to make the same mistake they made. That's what secondhand wisdom is, and that's what the Bible gives us. And I used to think, well, I just got to mess up to figure it out. That's kind of the cop-out. Oh, I don't need to listen. I'll just figure it out on my own. It's going to be different for me. Well, it's not different for these statistics. They're not listening to wisdom. See, one way that this has worked out in my life, and this is a specific thing that I've been thinking about, and people my age, we have this urge to do everything. Like, we want to go have fun. We want to do all these things. And then I've talked to people that have, when they have a baby, when they become a mom, when they become a dad, something changes in their life. When they hold that baby for the very first time, it's like time disappears. No longer does my life matter, but this is the life that I'm going to lay my life down for. See, if you haven't had a child, you don't know what that feels like. I don't know what it feels like to hold a baby and just realize, hey, this is my life now. But you know what? I'm trying to use secondhand wisdom and say, what do I want to do whenever I feel that? I don't know what it feels like, but I don't want to struggle trying to pay for formula. I don't want to be so strapped that I'm at work all the time and I can't spend time and watch my child grow. I don't want those things. And I'm trying to use secondhand wisdom and say, you know what? I'm going to say no now so I can say yes later. Because everybody I talk to has said, when you have a child, that is so much better than the life you had before. So I'm trying to grab a hold of that and say, I'm going to say no now so that I can say yes to my child in the future. That's what secondhand wisdom is. I don't know what it is for you, but try and find that you can hold on to and say, you know what? I'm going to say no now. And it's going to feel weird. I might want to do it, but I'm going to say no now. And as a society, we walk around like it's Halloween every day. We walk around with a mask on, acting like we have it all together. We've bought things we can't afford with money we don't have to impress people we don't even like. And we put on these masks like, oh, if they think that I'm cool. I drive a 1990 Ford F-150 that is not cool. It's got multiple colors, and there's only one of them that was original. But you know what? People don't look at me and they think, man, Michael's got a cool car. They think, man, he's funny. Michael helps me move whenever I'm moving. When everybody else said no, Michael said yes. That's what I want to be known for. I don't want to be known for the cool car I drive. I mean, those are nice. Don't get me wrong. And I don't want you to get from this message, don't have nice things, because God wants us to. And one day I'm going to. But right now I'm not. And I'm okay with that season of life because I know it's coming. I'm saying no now so I can say yes later. See, contentment has become so rare that it's like a superpower. There's nobody content in this world, it seems like. It's always competing with other people, but That's not a life of joy. That's a life of striving after something that's never going to make you happy. We have to choose to be content in where we are. And I've seen people that are living way, way worse than I am. And you know what? I'm thankful for everything I've got. And I have to remind myself of that every day. And I go into work at the farm whenever I work, and everybody always asks me, they say, how are you doing today? And I say, I can't complain about a thing in the world. I have a job. There's people that are praying for a job right now. You know, some people didn't wake up this morning that really wanted to see their family. I woke up. We always have something to be thankful for, and we can always be content. We need to be content in all circumstances. So for the short amount of time I have left with you guys, would you do something for me? I'm not asking anybody to raise their hand. I'm not going to ask you what you make a year or anything like that. But I want you just to think, examine your heart and say, where am I financially? Where am I really? Not what I'm trying to have people think I'm at. Not where I want people to see me as, but where am I really? Because whenever you come to realize where you really are, that's when you can start to grow. If you keep putting it off, you're never gonna change. It's just gonna keep going. You have to say, you know what, this is where I really am, and I might have made some mistakes, but you know what? There's breath in my lungs, and I'm not finished yet. My future is gonna look better than my past, and I'm gonna make steps today to make that happen. So, Pastor Chad talked about, he said, let's do non-negotiables instead of resolutions. And I got thinking about that, and there are 4 non-negotiables in Bailey and I's financial life, and I want to share that with you guys. These are 4 things that they are non-negotiable. They are happening or they're not happening. That's it. And I want to talk, the first one is the tithe. Bailey and I are tithers. It's non-negotiable. It's happening. If I make $100, it's getting tithed on. If I make $1 million, it's getting tithed on. That's it. There's no negotiation. We're going to do it. And you see, Proverbs 3:9 through 10, it says, honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine. See, God is telling us that if we're faithful, He's going to be faithful. If we step out in faith and put our money where our mouth is, He's going to put His money where His mouth is. And He's got a lot more money than we do. See, you're not ready to receive until you're ready to release. You're not ready to receive the blessings of God until you're ready to release what He's asked of you. And you're not ready to see God's faithfulness until you step out in faith. Because if you're not stepping out in faith, you're doing it on your own. And there's nowhere for Him to step in, right? And Luke 16:10, it says that if you can be trusted with a little, you can be trusted with much. See, some of us are saying, God, why aren't you blessing me? Well, He can't trust you because you're not giving what He's asked you to give. Why would somebody give to you if they can't trust you? Right? And I don't want this to come off as condemning or anything, because we all go through this season. There were seasons where Bailey and I, we weren't tithers until we had this realization, and I don't want anybody to ever feel like I'm hammering you or making you feel bad. God still loves you. He's still with you. He still loves you, no matter what. And I heard Pastor Chad say this one time. He said, many Christians don't want to give up what's in their hands, but they want God to give up what's in His. See, there's some people in here that you need to start tithing again, and that might be your first step. Your first step to a fresh start with your finances is saying, you know what, I'm going to give to you, God, because 90% with your blessing is better than 100% without. I believe you are faithful, and when I step out in faith, I'm going to see your faithfulness. I'm going to see it come through. My barns are going to be overflowing. My business is going to be growing because I've put you first, because I've trusted you, and I have taken the weight off my shoulders, and I said, I'm trusting you, and you're going to come through faithful. One thing I've learned about money is that it makes you more of what you already are. If you're generous, you're going to be more generous. If you're greedy, you're going to become more greedy. There's not this time like all tithe win, because there's never a win, because once you make $100,000, you're going to say, oh, I'll tithe when I make $200,000. We're always going to do this. It's one of those things you have to take a step, because it's not about how much you give, it's about the percent. He said, hey, give 10%. It doesn't matter if you're a millionaire or you're not. If you give your 10, he's going to bless it. The second non-negotiable, and this is one of the things that Bailey and I have learned through firsthand wisdom, is the budget. Every month, we spend our money on paper before we even receive our payment. We have labeled out what is important to us. We've labeled out our bills, and we've given our money an assignment before we even get paid. And you know what this does is this prepares you to say no. It's not in the budget. But it also, you see where your money's going. And you see Luke 14, 28, 29, it says, for which of you desiring to build a tower does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all will look at him and begin to mock. Dave Ramsey says it this way. He says, you can tell your money where to go or you can wonder where it went. And another way to say this is if we fail to plan our spending habits, we plan to fail with our finances. And how this worked out in Bailey and I's life, we were just married. We had probably just got back from our honeymoon. A couple weeks after that, we were laying in bed, and you know what you do whenever you're laying there, you start scrolling. And then I was like, hey, I'm going to check our bank account. I bet we're doing good. And I got on there and I looked and we were negative $113. And we had just got paid. You want to talk about sick. I had a knot in my heart just dropped into my stomach. And I was sick. I was thinking, I've already failed and we've only been married a couple weeks. I felt like a failure. I felt like it was all falling apart. If I can't handle this, how am I going to be a dad one day? And that feeling never leaves you. When you felt that desperation and you feel just sick. I even got up out of bed and I was like, this has to be a mistake. Got up out of bed and it's probably like 10 o'clock at night, and I got in the car and I drove to the ATM and I went and checked my balance. I was like, this has to be a lie. There's something wrong. There's a glitch in the machine, but it wasn't. And I had just mismanaged our money. And I was like, what did we buy? I don't remember buying it. We didn't go buy a car. We didn't buy anything big. And I got on there and it was Quick Trip. $1 here, $2 here, $5 here. Whoo! Song of Solomon says that it's the little foxes that destroy the vines. We talk in our mind and we're like, oh, I'm all right. It's just $1 here. I'm going to get a Quick Trip coffee. You guys know I love that Quick Trip coffee. And I really loved it. Oh, Maple Long John here? Don't mind if I do. It's only 99 cents today. Right? And I did this so many times that we were negative $113 in our bank account. And then we got a $32 overcharge. Are you kidding me? That Long John cost me over $32. Are you serious? Who else has made that mistake in here? Can I get an amen? We've overdrafted because we didn't tell our money where to go. And in that, I can sit back and laugh now, but in that moment, I felt like a failure. And I felt like it was no getting better. It was done. I'm a failure and I'm always going to be a failure. But the fact is, it's not. That was the point where I said no more. Never again will I not have a budget. Never again am I going to fail like this. I'm going to learn from my mistakes and I'm going to be wealthy. I'm telling it now. I'm declaring it here. Bailey and I are going to be wealthy one day. One day. But we have to budget our money. We have to tell our money where to go, or you're going to end up like I was and wonder where it went, and then you're going to look at all these little charges they got you. But just know that there's a bright light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not an oncoming train. You can get out. You can get out. Our third one, we will never have debt again. That's a bold statement. Bailey and I will never have debt again. We have our house now, and every time I open up that bill, I get a punch to the face, and I'm paying so much in interest it makes me sick. When you borrow money and you pay interest, you're making somebody else rich and you're robbing from your future. That's the reality. It's a punch in the face every time I open up that bill. And I'm thankful for my house and I love my house, but never again. And in Ecclesiastes 4:6, it says, better one hand with tranquility than two with toil and chasing after the wind. Bailey and I used to be normal. We used to have debt. We had car debt. We had credit card debt. We had all of it. We were normal. But we didn't have peace. We didn't have rest. And in another translation, it says that better is one hand with rest. Who's ever lost sleep over money before? Can I get a show of hands? All right, just me. But better is one hand with rest than two hands with toil and chasing after the wind. And I used to work out, and after my workout, I would always go run. And I would run down the street that Bailey and I actually live on now. And it was 46th Street across the river. And there was this one section, and there was this regular standard size, I'm convinced it's lower than standard size, but chain link fence. And every time I'd run past it, there was this huge German Shepherd in the backyard that would, they'd run across it and they're like, "Rrr," barking at the bottom of at the gate. Every time I ran by, and I was always so scared because that dog was so big he could jump over that. Guaranteed. If he knew he could jump over that fence, I would not be here with us today. And every morning, I would run by and I would have to prepare myself. I would be so anxious running, and I would just be like, oh, it's coming. And it would just scare me, and I'd kind of jump, and then I would feel anxiety, and I would just start sweating really bad, worse than I was. And I would just be so scared and anxious because there was a risk there. There was the risk that dog could jump over that fence and come get me. And where there's risk, there's anxiety. And see, debt doesn't tell you that it's going to add risk to your life because you're just losing your job away from, those bills are still coming. Doesn't matter if you have a job or not, right? Those bills, you might get sick. Heaven forbid you get sick, lose your job. The bills are still coming. They don't care. We don't calculate that risk when we make these decisions. And we need to, because risk is reality. The thing is, it's going to rain. You don't know when it's going to rain, but something's going to happen and it's going to rain, and those bills are still going to come. And see, I used to hate answering or checking the mailbox. I used to hate it. It was like every time I opened it up, that dog was in there. Give me your money. I had so many bills I hated checking the mail. I hate it. And now that Bailey and I have paid off everything but our house, I love checking the mail. I love getting those Christmas cards from people of their beautiful families and getting to go hang them up on there. Used to, I didn't notice the family pictures because I was so focused on the money I was having to pay out for these things. But now I'm able to enjoy these. I don't worry anymore. And Bailey and I's marriage is like, it's just exploded, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing because we don't have to worry about it. Because we've eliminated debt in our life, and debt has got to be a non-negotiable. See, it says in Proverbs 22:7, it says, the rich rule over the poor and the borrower is slave to the lender. And we're all Bible-believing people here, so we can believe that we are a slave to whatever we owe. That thing owns you, and it tells you where your money's going to go. Right? The borrower is slave to the lender, and I'm done. I'm not a slave. I'm going to follow the wisdom in Proverbs, and I'm not going to be a slave. Never again. The fourth, invest in your future. A wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. Proverbs 13:22. Who wants to leave a funeral bill for their family? I don't. I want to leave an inheritance. I want to leave a legacy for my kids. I don't want my kids to have to go into debt for me. I want them to prosper because of the wisdom I had and the life I lived. I don't want there to be any bitter feelings towards me when I die. I want to leave an inheritance to my children's children. And there's this story of Jacob and Esau, and I would love if you guys would follow along with me. It's in Genesis 25, and it's verse 29 through 34. So there were these two brothers, and their names were Jacob and Esau. Esau was the older one. And in this time, the oldest person, the oldest son was the inheritor. He would inherit everything, right? So he had an inheritance that Jacob didn't simply because he was born. And Jacob is known more as like the clever guy. He's the nerdy, clever guy. And then Esau is this big, buff, hairy guy, manly man. And one day in this story, he was out hunting. And he was gone all day, And Jacob was back, and he would be what you'd call more of a mama's boy. He was back, and I don't take any offense to this, but he was cooking, and I don't mean that in any way. I love to cook. But I said mama's boy, and then I started talking cooking. I didn't mean that way. But so he's back cooking. He cooks this porridge, and he cooks it, and here comes Esau, big burly man carrying the food that he just killed. He brings it back, and at one point he gets in there. He's like, Jacob, I'm so hungry I could die. He wasn't really going to die, but he was being a little dramatic. Has anybody in here ever been dramatic? Yeah, so he comes in, and he's like, I haven't eaten all day. I'm so hungry I could die. And Jacob says, give me your inheritance, and I'll give you this bowl of porridge. And he said, well, what good's an inheritance if I'm dead? And he takes the bowl, and he gives away his inheritance. See, Esau was thinking with his stomach. He wasn't thinking in the future. And then he came to regret this decision and despise his brother because he wasn't wise. He said, I'm hungry now, so I want this now, so I'm going to do whatever I have to do to get it now, even if it sacrifices my future. I will give up my future because I'm hungry now. And that's what we do every day. We say, I need this car. There's never going to be a deal like this again. Let me tell you, there's going to be a better deal. You don't need it now. You don't need to spend more money than you have. Because whenever you start spending other people's money, you're no longer stewarding God's money, you're stewarding the other person's money. God has given us everything we need. He's told us this in Scripture. We have to understand the difference between a need and a want. Because you might want it, but you don't need it. And you're giving away your future. Some people are driving their children's college. I'm out for you today. Some people are driving cars and they're not going to have college paid for their kids because they wanted it now. But we have to think in the future. And I study millionaires because I would love to be one day. And I believe that I'm going to be. And I'm going to be an extremely generous millionaire. But I studied them because if I want to be a millionaire, I need to know what millionaires do, right? If I want to learn to get fit, I'm going to go to somebody who's fit. So if you want to become wealthy, you got to do what wealthy people are doing. And 78% of people aren't doing that because they're not wealthy. They're living paycheck to paycheck. And I don't say that because I just want you guys to know that millionaires think 10 years in advance. Before they buy something, they say, what am I going to think of this purchase in 10 years? That's a simple filter we can put on our lives. What am I going to think about this in 10 years? Because if I'm not going to want this in 10 years, then I don't need to buy it. And I was running some calculations because I'm probably one of the biggest financial nerds that you could ever meet. And I have a compound interest calculator on my phone. And I'm always working. I'm like, oh, how much do we need to put in to become millionaires? How much do we need to put in to secure our future? How much do we need to put in to leave an inheritance to our children's children? And I was doing it, and a decent car payment is about $500. Okay? If you invest $500 instead of paying a car payment every month, in 30 years you'll be a multimillionaire. Woo! Hope that car's worth it, right? And that's how I'm able to say no. I'll drive old Red Dragon. I'll drive you because I'm not going to be driving you forever. I'm going to be driving a Bentley one day. Just kidding, I don't like Bentleys. But in all reality, when you look at these numbers, it makes sense and it really sinks in. Just think about that. Youngins. I've been told, I talk to people who are in a later stage of their life and they're saying, man, I wish I would have done what you're doing now. I waited too long. 30 years. Some of you are going to be 50 and you could have multi-million dollars if you just choose to buy a car you can pay cash for. Man, you guys think of that? So, if we want to win with money, we have to control the man or woman in the mirror. That's what it comes down to. We have to learn to say no. And I'm going to tell you a story, and it's in Judges 16 if you guys want to follow along. And there's this guy named Samson, right? A lot of us know his story. He was this big, strong man anointed by God to destroy the Philistines, who were the enemy of the Israelites. He met this woman named Delilah, who would end up representing destruction in Samson's life. He met this woman, and just for a little reference, so Samson is from Zorah, which I'm going to call God's instruction. That's not what it means, but I'm just calling it that. Delilah lived in the valley of Sorek, which I'm going to call personal destruction, right? So we're over here. Samson is in Zorah, where God has called him to be, living in the instruction of the Lord to stay here, to stay pure, to stay healthy, to do these things. And you've got Delilah. She's over there in the valley. And the valley is down from them. Where Samson's at is up top. And he would have to walk down into this valley by the river to meet Delilah. And he did this. And he went down and he stayed with her. And she was planning with the enemy of God to try and take Samson down because they knew that Samson could destroy them. So they said, Delilah, find out what is the source of his strength and tell us, and we're going to give you 11 pieces of silver. And Delilah says, okay. Delilah's a Philistine. And she says, okay, and she has Samson laying out in her lap. Samson thinks he loves this woman. And he's laying his head in her lap, and she says, Samson, what is the source of your strength? And he told her a couple lies, and she did this whole thing. You guys need to go read the story. But eventually she says, Samson, do you not love me? What is the source? You've made me look like a fool. What is the source of your strength? And he finally told her, he said, a razor has never been taken to my head. If you cut my hair, I'll become like any other man. She cut his hair. The Philistines came in, tied him up, gouged his eyes out, made him blind, made him a slave, working to the bone every day. He couldn't see a way out because he was blinded. There he was. But how did he get to the valley? He got there one step at a time. I don't know how many steps it was from his home to destruction. But you know, how do we get into debt? One purchase at a time. How do we get addicted to pornography? One click at a time. How do we get into a relationship with somebody when we're married? One wave at a time, one smile at a time, one harmless lunch date at a time. But you know what? Samson could have completely changed his life if he would have just turned around and went back to God's instruction instead of personal destruction. See, some of you are struggling, and I don't want this to stay just financial, but some of you guys are facing a mound of debt and you don't feel like you can get out. You feel like Samson as a slave with your eyes gouged out. You don't see a future for yourself because you can't see past this pile. But I'm telling you, you can do it. You can do it. You are not a slave if you choose to change. That's the beautiful thing, is you can choose to change today. Today could be the day that you say, I'm turning around. You know what? I might have done something yesterday, but I'm not doing it again today. You can choose to be smart with your finances. You can choose to live within your means. You can choose to say no. You can choose to invest in your future so you leave an inheritance for your children's children. You get to choose. You get to choose. The question is, are you going to turn? Are you going to step away from what you did yesterday? That's the only question here. I can't do that for you, but I can tell you that you can do it. See, we might feel like a failure because we faced some things. But listen, your past doesn't determine your future unless you let it. Right? Your past failure can either define you and control your life, or it can refine you and catapult you forward. You get to choose. You can sit in that self-pity and say, I'm never going to get out, or you can say, you know what? I'm not a victim. It doesn't matter. I'm getting out of here. I'm a victor because if God is with me, who can be against me? The rear view mirror in a car is smaller than the windshield for a reason. See, it's okay to look back and see where you came from. But don't dwell in the past because it's gone and you can't change it. Look to the future because you can create it. It's in your hands. You get to choose. Now you have to choose and say, these are my non-negotiables. No matter what, I will not do this. I will not text other women. I will not text other men without it being a group text message where I can have accountability. You can choose to do that. You can say, you know what? I struggle with this, so I'm going to let somebody have access to every click on my phone. You can choose to do it. We need to set up guardrails in our life because that means that there's a curve and there's a possibility of going off the cliff. You get to choose. And you know what? There might be a Goliath in front of you, but there's a David inside of you. And it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's time to stop telling God how big our mountains are and start telling our mountains how big our God is, because He is faithful. And we're going to do what we can do, and we're going to trust Him to do what only He can do. Would you guys close your eyes for me?